if people outside are having coffee, if you listen to me, please come in to finish your food. Okay, I invite Marina. Could you please? Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I know you had a long and busy day with really wonderful discussion. So thank you for being here with us for this panel. And also, I'd like to thank INPO for the organization of this event. And a special thanks to Andre. He's outside, but I've heard that he's losing his hair with this organizing this event. So we truly appreciate his efforts for this. And it's good he's not here now. So the previous panel gave us some discussions about the connection between climate and BBNJ. But now I'd like to go further in this discussion. Because this year alone, you have 4 milestones. We have 4 COPs only this year. We have Biodiversity COP, we have Climate COP, the first one, BBNJ COP, and the CMS COP, the Convention of Migratory Species. So, and we are few working on that. I mean, we have limited resources, financial resources, human resources, and you don't have time for that. So, we must connect, we must integrate those agendas so we can work in a better pace and really achieve these goals we have further. So, our main goal here is to discuss the marine protected areas as this tool to bring together, to leverage, to integrate these global agendas as well. And I'm particularly happy with that because I love to work with integration. I really believe that integration is in co-design and bringing together different specialties is the way that we can achieve big solutions. And that's what we've been doing in Boticário Group Foundation for 35 years, working with science and policy to work for solutions for nature conservation. And I have here, and online as well, some people that will bring these different perspectives of these different agendas. So, to cover all this session, we have 2 rounds. So the first round you have here, it's a setting the scene round, where you bring the perspective of these different agendas in this relationship to BBNJ. And the second round, you have more practical cases, bringing different perspectives of how to implement this, the marine protected areas within the BBNJ aspect. And then followed by a final wrap-up. So, first of all, to start our deep dive, I would like to invite Marina Correia. Marina is a biologist and lead of the Ocean Agenda at WWF Brazil. And she works in the front lines of connecting marine conservation with the global biodiversity tasks. So, Marina, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Let me start thanking the event organizers, so Boticário Group Foundation, Greenpeace Brazil, and the Brazilian Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, both for the invitation, but also for convening this such important discussion. The adoption of the High Seas Treaty represents a historic opportunity to better connect global agendas on biodiversity conservation, migratory species protection, and climate action. A few examples illustrate the importance of this integration more clearly than the conservation of large whales. Animals that, among other ecosystem services, also capture significant amounts of carbon from the atmosphere. Here in Brazil, the Abrolhos Bank is one of the most important breeding grounds for humpback whales in the South Atlantic. And for many people, those seasonal visits create a powerful emotional and cultural connection with the ocean. But the stories of the whales does not start or end here. They travel thousands of kilometers across the South Atlantic and through areas of the high seas toward feeding grounds in Antarctica. And this extraordinary journey highlights a key principle: ecological connectivity. Protecting migratory species requires safeguarding not only critical habitats like abrolhos, but also migratory routes. And this vision has long been recognized under the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species, CMS, which promotes international cooperation to conserve species across their entire range, and is supported by the scientific work developed under CBD.
Could you please change it to the next slide? Or I'm not doing this right, but I think it's just push the button. Okay. No, the...
That's okay.
No
problem. So you can see it later. Because I was going to say that initiatives such the bluecorridors.org, developed by WWF and partners, help identify threats, migratory routes, and critical habitats across jurisdiction. And the image that I was going to show is this platform, which is amazing, that actually shows the routes and the connection among the coast, the high seas, and southern oceans. And until recently, however, there was a governance gap. So migratory routes in areas beyond national jurisdictions could not be effectively protected. Countries could only protect key habitats within national jurisdiction, contributing to the 30 by 30 target under GBF. And this is the gap that the High Seas Treaty helps to address. So if coordinated with CMS, CBD, and UNFCCC, it can help safeguard ecological connectivity. BBNJ can actually act as a delivery mechanism for global biodiversity target, while also strengthening protection for migratory species and enhancing resilience to climate change, a powerful catalyst for a more integrated approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. That's great. And it's really interesting to hear about CMS and how it also integrates. We always discuss a lot about CDB and biodiversity goals, but CMS is the corridor connecting everything in the sea, so that's amazing. And now I invite Letícia Cotrim, which is online. Hopefully she is going to appear here.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, Letícia, we can hear you. We can't see you yet, but we can hear you. Oh, yeah, that's great. Hello.
Okay.
So Letícia Cotrim, she is a renowned scientist and professor, widely recognized for her contributions for chemical oceanography and her active role in international UNFCCC forums. So she'll bring this connection about climate and BBNJ. Thanks, Letícia, for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation and good afternoon to everybody. The key message, you probably talked about that earlier today, is that we have to, it's great that we had the BBNJ signed and is going to be enforced now. But what we have to remember is that the ocean has no borders. So there's no borders between the exclusive economic zones and the high seas and vice versa. And so does the whole ocean. It's in contact with the atmosphere. Again, there are no borders. I mean, we just change phase. We change from water to gas when you go through the atmosphere. And it goes on both ends, so it's highly important to preserve and conserve the high seas, the ocean as a whole, but given the extension. But at the same time, we mustn't forget that the protection and the success and the full success of the High Seas Treaty is that we need to stop emitting fossil, and have to stop emitting greenhouse gases from mainly fossil fuel burning. So this we cannot forget. I mean, every molecule of, CO2 or CO2 equivalent that is emitted to the atmosphere is further warming the planet, and it's further warming the ocean. And there's no way we can say, so, oh, here, no, the high seas, this heat or this excess CO2 that leads to ocean acidification, you're not going to be here. Yes, it's going to be there. And so it has to go, climate action has to go hand in hand with the conservation. So this is, this is super important that we keep in mind. Otherwise, we're going to have an ocean in, the high seas, but also the coastal, the shelf, the exclusive economic zones, the services, between brackets, it's they give us. So absorbing the excess heat that goes to the atmosphere, stays in the atmosphere from the fossil, from the greenhouse gases emissions, and also the excess CO2 that has already changed the ocean chemistry, especially on the top 200 meters of the ocean, but also on the deep ocean as well. We have to go, they have to go hand in hand. It's important to preserve, and it's important to have effective climate action to reduce emissions. So this is the message, and I guess this is the way all the ocean and climate community and also chemical oceanography community sees these links and the importance between the protecting the biodiversity of the high seas and the climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. So sometimes you get lost between many goals and targets, but some messages are quite clear. So, and if you work with the ocean and climate, we must have some clear and ambitious goals, like stopping fossil fuels emissions, like in this way it's going through. And now I invite Melissa I've already practicing that. Melissa Abderrahim, yeah, from IUCN. So she's the Ocean Program Officer at the IUCN Ocean Team, who focuses on the global frameworks and standards necessary for marine protection. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to thank the organizers of this session for this timely discussion, and it's really a pleasure to be here to participate in this important topic. So to begin, and as all of you know, but I think it's worth re-emphasizing that the large and even universal participation to the BBNJ and its implementation is really key to achieve the 30 by 30 goal at a global level. And the historical entry into force of the BBNJ agreement is carrying a lot of hope to conserve key ocean biodiversity areas, notably for climate regulation, but also for benefits to the coastal zone and coastal communities within the EEZ. And the BBNJ agreement also raises the bar of what conservation and sustainable use measures should look like, notably on aspects of ecological representation, ecological connectivity, vulnerability to climate change, and so forth, as we heard earlier today. Nonetheless, the ambition of the BBNJ can only be met if all countries are able to participate meaningfully and equitably in its process. As mentioned a few times in plenary and in the panels this morning, this notion of equity is key. And with this in mind, I'd like to share a very concrete support mechanism that IUCN has in place currently, with support from the European Commission Directorate General for International Partnership, or DJ INPO. IUCN is currently implementing the first component of the Global Ocean Program, which has at its core a technical assistance facility that aims to enhance capacities of states as well as regional organizations with state members to engage in biodiversity conservation processes in areas beyond national jurisdiction. So of course this includes BBNJ, but also other frameworks and conventions such as CMS, CITES, CBD, and so forth. So the facility has been operationalized since June of last year and will continue on for the next 5 years. And it provides support on a rolling basis, really tailored to the country's needs. And it's open to a wide spectrum of states, and I'm happy to share more about accessing this opportunity after the session, so please come find me if you have an interest. And as part of this program, so we have this technical assistance facility, but we're also supporting taxa-based mapping tools to fill in knowledge gaps in areas beyond national jurisdiction, feeding to what has been mentioned earlier. So this includes the important marine mammal areas, the important sharks and rays areas, the important bird areas, and the important marine turtle areas. Really recognizing that these are tools and they're essential in the they are essential inputs in the design as well as the implementation of the future area-based management tools, including MPAs under the BBNJ.
Thanks, Melissa. And that's great to hear this tool being managed in this integrated way, right? So it will be great for the states to implement. And now I'm going to a round of questions for our three speakers here. I will start with Leticia Catherine. And Leticia, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. I can see you as well.
Well, soon you will see. Okay, that's great. So Leticia, how does the conservation of high seas biodiversity directly contribute to the stability of the global climate regulation? And why are marine protected areas essential to safeguard these interconnected processes? So it's a tough question, but I'm sure you're the person to answer that.
Well, you know, I teach a semester course on that. You can attend. I'll try and answer in 5 minutes, if possible. Coming back to what Marina just said, she was talking about the whales and all the migratory animals. So the ocean has this very delicate equilibrium, and it goes from the top, so like the big organisms, to the tiny ones, to the plankton, to the phytoplankton, and to the zooplankton, and vice versa. And the ocean needs to be equilibrated on that, because lots of the controls on greenhouse gases and other climate relevant chemical species, for instance, aerosols, they are controlled by these biological ecological relationships along the whole food chain in the ocean. So it's a very complicated clockwork, and then if you take a piece out, and if it's not in equilibrium, for instance, on the biological side, you're going to have consequences on what we call the biogeochemical cycles, which is they all intermediate by some biological process, thus some organism, be bacteria, be phytoplankton, be whales, big birds, tuna fish, whatsoever. So this is also, and it's also very important that the physical environment where all these organisms thrive, we hope they thrive, right? We need to have a healthy ocean. We need to have the circulation working. We need to have the availability of the different nutrients they need. We need to have the seasons, the regime of winds and waves, and everything has to be in equilibrium. So this is why we need to have a minimum predictable ocean functionment, so that we're going to stay in this equilibrium. And it's valid for for the organisms, to biodiversity, but also for anything related to climate. And if you have any other questions, I'll be very happy to answer that.
Thanks, Leticia, for your answer. So we need to go from plankton to whales to guarantee these biogeochemical cycles, and that's why it's important to have protect areas as well. So going to Marina Macorreia, you're representing here WWF, so I'd like to know from a civil society perspective, how can the BBNJ agreement be used to harmonize the 3030 target with the protection of migratory species? And what is the role of NGOs to ensure these frameworks work in synergy?
Thanks. So I think one of the key opportunities is actually if the High Seas Treaty builds on existing knowledge and cooperation across international frameworks. As I explained through the Blue Corridors example, the experience under CMS, CBD, and FCCC is extremely valuable, and we have to acknowledge that. And I think those processes, they have already generated science, cooperation mechanisms, and tools. And I think that now the UN Decade of Ocean Science, which the event's going to happen in Brazil next year, provides a really important moment to bring science together and support more coordinated implementation across conventions. In this context, I think the civil society do play a really key role connecting science to policy, supporting governments, and pushing for ambition and implementation, especially for the delivery of real conservation outcomes for the ocean. The civil society also plays a critical role in promoting transparency and really pressuring for participative and inclusive decision-making processes, and of course, equitable governance.
Thanks, Ma. Thanks so much. So hopefully we'll be here in Rio again next year, maybe in this stage discussing this in this integration. And now, to finish this first round, Melissa, how can countries proactively prepare for the effective design and implementation of future area-based management tools, including MPAs, under the BBNJ agreement, while ensuring that capacity-building efforts enable meaningful and equitable participation in decision-making processes?
Thank you for the question. So firstly, we all know, of course, that the subsidiary bodies under the agreement, including the STB, still need to be established, and that key decisions related to area-based management tools will ultimately be taken by the COP and at the COP. Nonetheless, countries can already begin to prepare for the effective design and implementation of these ABMTs. And supporting these first, and I want to say almost pioneer efforts, is incredibly important. And some are already on the way. This is why IUCN has joined a consortium of partners together with GIZ and GOBI in a new initiative called Living High Seas, funded by the IKI program of the German government. And through this initiative, the consortium will work with partner countries to develop area-based management tool proposals in key biodiversity areas within different ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, or EPSAs. So this will include, of course, building the strong scientific and knowledge case for the proposed sites, conducting the necessary consultation at the national but also at the global level, and ensuring that the lessons learned and best practices are shared across sites, across countries, and across ocean basins. And this initiative also aims to support this kind of policy uptake process, so feeding back into the BBNJ process as well as other frameworks and conventions. And really, through this initiative, we're putting a pin in the need for this policy uptake and the lessons learned to support this capacity building among states with each other, but also with other key actors to ensure effective participation in the design as well as the implementation of these ABMTs. And this also includes engaging with other instrument frameworks and relevant bodies, or IFBs. And as mentioned earlier today, it's important to do that in a proactive way in the design stage of ABMT proposals. So states engaging with IFBs, but also the other way around, not waiting for the proposal to reach the conference of the parties and undergo the required consultation, but really engaging at the early stage. And of course, all of this depends on building relationship, building trust, collaboration among various actors, and it all takes a lot of time. So it's important for long-term initiatives that allow for that space to be created, to exist and to be supported. And finally, I wanted to touch on a few tools and standards that we have available through the IUCN. So as you probably all know, IUCN is a union of members, so that includes the council and our various members, as well as our commissions. I'm sure that you know the ones that I'm going to list now, but just to name a few, we have the World Commission on Protected Areas, WCPA, the World Commission on Environmental Law, the Species Survival Commission, and the Commission on Ecosystem Management. And of course, as the third kind of body to IUCN, we have the Secretariat, so people like me implementing different initiatives and programs. So within the union and across commissions and Secretariat, we have numerous tools available to support the design and implementation of area-based management in ABNJ, and opportunities also to update them in the context of the BBNJ agreement. So just to name a few again, we have the red list of ecosystem, we have the taxa-based mapping tools that I just mentioned earlier. We also have legal explanatory guides for different agreements, with one for the BBNJ agreement that's coming out soon. And we also have the WCPA guidelines for marine protected areas, which through this new initiative that I mentioned, we also aim to contribute an update in the context of implementing area-based management in ABNJ. So to conclude, all these efforts, so whether capacity building, knowledge generation, policy support, and long-term collaboration, are essential steps to ensure that countries are not only ready to design ABMTs, but also are fully empowered to participate meaningfully and equitably in shaping the future of high seas governance.
So thank you, Marina, Melissa, and Leticia, for your inspiring speeches and for being strict to the time. So thank you again. Now leave the floor. And I invite Ana Paula Prates and Noel Young to join me here in the stage. So now in this round, the second round, we are going to move to the practice. And first of all, I also invite an online participant. I invite Adriano Quintela. Adriano, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear. Can you hear me too?
Yes, we can hear. Thank you for joining us, for accepting our invitation. And Adriano is a specialist in marine spatial planning and a leader at the Oceano Azul Foundation, with hands-on experience in the Azores Marine Park process. So, Adriano, the floor is yours to bring your...
Thank you very much. Thank you also, the organizers of this event, for this invitation, for such an important topic of discussion. Setting the scene, the first thing I would like to say is that when we talk about protection of the high seas, we often imagine distant waters, remote places that are seen disconnected from our daily lives. However, we know that this is not the truth. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The high seas are the blue heart of our planet. They regulate our climate, they sustain our marine biodiversity, and they connect ocean ecosystems that ultimately will support coastal communities around the world. And I think it's really important for us to change that perception. In the Azores, we learned something that I think is very important for the discussion today, is that protecting the ocean at a large scale requires an alignment of science, strong science, political leadership, and social legitimacy. Through the Blue Azores Initiative, a partnership that is between the regional government of the Azores, Oceano Azul Foundation, and Wait Institute, we worked to design the science-based roadmap to protect one of the most biodiverse ocean regions in the North Atlantic. This was done with strict and highly protected areas designed to maximize the benefits the benefits of such protection. This process was built in three important key pillars. First, science as a foundation for decision making. So we use the best available scientific data, including seamounts, distribution, deep sea ecosystems, migratory routes, and ecological connectivity to identify, through a process of systematic conservation planning, the priority areas for protection. Some of these areas strongly overlap with ecological or biological significant areas identified under the Convention on Biological Diversity. Secondly, and really important, is that we need to have inclusive governance and participation of all the users. We brought together scientists, fishers, policymakers, civil society in general, and international experts to co-design the solutions and co-responsibility of the decisions that go much way far and beyond the designation of the areas. For example, by using tools that are designed specifically for this purpose, such as SeaSketch, for example. Ocean protection at scale can only be successful when the ecological objectives are aligned with social legitimacy. Third, and not less important, the Azores announced the protection of nearly 30% of its surrounding waters, including vast deep sea ecosystems and seamount chains, creating one of the largest networks of marine protected areas in North Atlantic. Therefore, ambition that needs to match the scale of the ocean. But what makes the Azores case particularly important and relevant is that these ecosystems do not stop at political boundaries. Many of these ecological systems, they extend beyond national waters into areas beyond national jurisdiction. And I think this is where BBNJ agreement becomes transformational. For the first time, the international community has a global framework that is capable of establishing marine protected areas in the ICs. And also, in the ICs, they should be grounded in science, cooperation, and equitable governance. Experiences like in the Azores, they demonstrate that we already have the scientific tools, we already have the governance models, and the partnerships that are needed to identify priority areas to build political momentum. The next step is to connect those efforts into a coherent global network of ocean protection. Because protecting the ICs is not only about biodiversity, it's about safeguarding the planetary systems that regulate climate, sustain marine life, and support cultures and livelihoods for coastal communities worldwide. So BBNJ agreement gives us the opportunity to move from fragmented initiatives into global strategies for ocean protection. And the work that is happening in places such as in the Azores show that this transformation is not only possible, but it's already begun. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adriano. And it's really good to hear some successful case because, you know, the challenge is big, but seeing that it's possible and you've done that, so it gives us faith to keep on our fight of bridging science and policy together with community involvement. So next, I invite Noel Young, advocate and researcher from Bermuda, who brings the vital perspective of connectivity and climate justice in the Sargasso Sea. Please, Noel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noel Young. My professional background is in aquaculture, mariculture, and fisheries. And today, much of my work sits at the intersection of environmental rights and human rights. I am an environmental justice delegate from Bermuda, as well as a consultant for the Greenpeace Sargasso Sea Sanctuary campaign. As many of you know, Bermuda is a small island community in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by a remarkable ecosystem known as the Sargasso Sea. Many people around the world know of our waters because of the legend of the Bermuda Triangle, a place where ships and aircraft sometimes mysteriously disappear. For generations, those stories have captured imaginations far beyond our shores. But today, the disappearances we should be most concerned about are not legends at all. They are real possibilities. As many of you know, the Sargasso Sea is one of the most unique and well-studied ecosystems of the Atlantic, but unfortunately, it is also one of the least protected. Ocean currents gather vast rafts of sargassum that drifts across the sea, forming floating habitat that supports many forms of oceanic life at the most critical stages of their journey. Within this ecosystem live species that are rarely seen anywhere else, such as the pygmy sperm whales and humpbacks, moving quietly through the deeper waters around Bermuda. The ancient six-gilled sharks rising up from the depths in the evenings, and the remarkable European eel, whose mysterious life cycle begins in the Sargasso before traveling thousands of kilometers across the Atlantic to the freshwater rivers of Rome. But without meaningful protections, they too could disappear. And when key migratory species disappear, the consequences ripple far beyond the individual ecosystem itself. For communities like Bermuda, the ocean is woven deeply into our cultural heritage. Beneath the waters surrounding our island lay hundreds of historic shipwrecks, silently witnessing the centuries of navigation, exploration, and survival within the Atlantic. In this way, our economic stability is also connected to the ocean. These sites form an important part of our national story, but also our maritime tourism industry. If the ocean declines, these opportunities will disappear, affecting not only our economy, but the food security, well-being, and health of our entire small community. It is worth mentioning that Bermuda is actually a subnational island jurisdiction of the UK. We do not sit as a member state of the United Nations, and we do not have representation or voting power in the rooms where decisions about the high seas are made. Small island voices are often invited into global rooms to inspire, but not always to influence. Sometimes our role in conversations like this is simply to remind the world of what is at stake and to encourage all of us to find the courage to speak up for that which cannot speak for itself. Protecting 30% of the Atlantic by 2030 presents an opportunity for bold ocean leadership. A connected network of ocean sanctuaries across the Atlantic could realistically safeguard migratory pathways, protect deep sea ecosystems, and provide a model that could be replicated in other ocean basins where species move freely across borders. A connected network of sanctuaries could safeguard migratory pathways. We welcome the news that the governments of the United Kingdom and Bermuda have signaled their support for a protected area in the Sargasso Sea. This is an encouraging step forward, but it's vital that protections are strong and long-term, and that the governments work together to develop a highly ambitious proposal that restricts industrial activity in the Sargasso, while also recognizing the ecological connectivity across the wider Atlantic, as well as the globe itself. I believe that the real mystery of the Bermuda Triangle should not become the disappearance of the very life that makes the region so extraordinary. In closing, I'd like to say that Bermuda's greatest contribution to the global ocean may not be our size, it may not be funding or political power within this governance system. It may simply be clarity. Clarity about what true community stewardship looks like. Clarity about responsibility beyond borders. The question is not whether Bermuda belongs in global conversations. The question is whether global systems are ready to truly listen to small island nations, those that will live with the outcomes of these decisions. And perhaps the most important question of all, if not us, then who? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Noel. I was ready to say it was a really inspiring speech, but not only inspiring, as I said, we not invited here just to inspire, but to give us really important messages and ways to follow. And I'm really eager to listen to Bermudas and all the other small islands has to say, and to teachers as well. So now I invite Ana Paula Prates. Ana Paula is a fisheries engineer with a PhD in marine ecology and director of ocean and coastal management at the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. And I had to say that she has led the creation of many marine protected areas here in Brazil as well. So really good to have you here talking about that. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your hope message. I think it's very, very good for us in this moment. Good afternoon to everyone here and the online audience. It is a pleasure to be here to talk about one of the most important pillars of the BBNJ, which are area-based management tools, include marine protected areas. And for this, I want to thank you, our partners who co-host with us, Fundação Grupo Boticário and Greenpeace Brazil, and for my colleagues in this panel for convening this important discussion. And I'm very happy with the female and Adriano side event. I think it's... Well, what I want to say is, I don't know if the slide is here. Just first, no, you can stop in the, yes. First, it is important that we understand what we are talking about here. The goal is to conserve biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions for the simplest or complex reason that we desperately need to restore the health of the ocean for the sake of planetary balance. And of course, besides stop the emission, as Leticia said before. In this reason, MPAs are one of the best and most effective tools for this proposal, where it is possible to safeguard at least some portions of areas where they can be preserved and from any type, or at least from the several main impacts. With national jurisdiction, we have long experience and lesson learned in using this instrument with a considerable increase in the percentage of areas created, but it is still small considering all international water. Could you please show this second slide? In Brazil, for example, you can see that we already have 26.7% of our EEZ with MPAs, growing since 1979, when the first MPA was created, which is Atol das Rocas Biological Reserve, and more recently, last Friday, in fact, after 2 decades of discussion, the Albardão Marine National Park was created with more than 1 million hectares of ocean to be conserved. But how to go beyond that? The ocean has no border, as we know, and my colleagues said before. But those borders are imaginary lines that we have established only geopolitically. And the whole point is that we also need connectivity, but we need protection in these areas beyond jurisdiction. So how do we do that? What I wanted to show is that for BBNJ process, there are already some experience and indication of where to start. Please show another, yes. For example, in the Camelar, which is the Convention of Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resource in the scope of Antarctic Treaty, some marine protected areas have already been established. In the case of common law, those protected areas have time limits, usually 15 or 60 years, with the expectation that they will be reviewed. The most interesting thing is that, in this case, the area is managed by the proposing countries, but with shared responsibility among the other members countries of the treaty. This will likely be the case under BBNJ. And you can see in the next slide, and within the scope of CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, another example I would like to show is about abscess process. What is abscess? Abscesses are the ecological and biological significant marine areas, which are, in effect, a major global effort to describe priority areas for marine biodiversity conservation. These issues has been discussed for many, many years within the CBD, with several twists and turns since 2006 until the last COP15 held in Cali in 2024, where a resolution was finally approved on how these areas already described in regional workshops that held between 2010 and 2014 could be updated. The aim of these areas to serve as inputs for the work of BBNJ, which now beginning after 2 decades of discussion. In addition, we can recall here the words of Marina Correa about the CMS, which provide technical and scientific support for BBNJ too, by identifying important areas of various marine species and the migratory routes. Member countries or parties will be able to look at these as lessons learned and take advances of all the knowledge gained over the years. Because the most important thing I think is to do is we don't have more time. We don't to waste in trying. And I said at the beginning to restore the health of the ocean to help it recover, to regulate the climate, for example, as its great whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Ana Paula, and thanks for bringing more names and cycles for us to, to know EBSAs and CAMAR and BBNJ. You have a lot to talk about today. And now I invite again Adriana for our last round of questions. So the unique man, he came from the male quota. How do you say that in English? So Adriano, can you hear us? Yeah, to me, okay. So, Adriano, the studies process is a global reference, as you told us and explained us about this process, but I'd like to know what were the most significant technical and diplomatic blueprints from the Azores case that allowed you to move toward the formal protection of such a vast international area protection.
Thank you very much for the question. But before I answer the question, I would just want to say that having such a powerful woman on the side of ocean conservation makes me much more rested and at ease. And of course, I need to name Ana Paula and Marinê Scherer being the ocean leaders in Brazil. I think it's really important. In terms of the blueprints from the Azores experiences, I would like to highlight three major key blueprints. So first, the science-driven spatial planning. So we invested very significantly in mapping deep sea ecosystems, seamounts, biodiversity hotspots, and ecological connectivity. And this allowed us to identify the priority areas of conservation. And based on the ecosystem functions through a systematic conservation planning process. So the same type of scientific foundation that is on the same type of scientific foundations that the BBNJ processes will need to require, including the quantifiable conservation objectives. They need to be quantifiable, and they need to include areas of climate refugia and connectivity. That is really important. We cannot continue to have only science paper-driven, but move into a model of decision-making policy science. So secondly, the co-creation with stakeholders. Large-scale ocean protection can only work when those who depend on the ocean are part of the solution. In the Azores, fisheries scientists, non-government organizations, policymakers, and local communities were involved from the beginning. This is a process that can build trust, legitimacy, and long-term support. Only by providing the sense of ownership of these areas by the stakeholders, it's possible. Third, the political leadership supported by the international partnerships. The regional government showed strong ambition, while collaboration with international scientific networks, philanthropic partners, and civil society strengthened the process and helped align local priorities with global conservation goals. Together, these three elements created a model where science, participation, and policy reinforce each other. This approach also helped to mobilize over 20 million euros just for the implementation of the Marine Protected Areas Network. And this is really important. We believe that this model can help inform how countries and regions can contribute to the implementation of marine protected areas under the BBNJ agreement. And what we achieve in the Azores proves that science, cooperation, and leadership can deliver ocean protection at scale. With BBNJ, we now have the opportunity to bring that model into the ICs. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. And as you are talking about co-design processes and involved all the stakeholders since the beginning, all these different stakeholders, I thought about a really Brazilian expression. Actually, it's a Brazilian attitude, which is tudo junto e misturado, which literally means all together and mixed. So I think that could be some the way of doing this and for achieving goals in BBNJ and bringing all tudo junto e misturado to implement the marine protected areas. So going to Noel. So Noel, having been involved in the protection efforts of the Sargasso Sea, how can we translate the high seas reality to communities who feel disconnected from the open ocean? And why is their support vital for the success of these protection areas? So you brought the deep connection you have, Bermuda people have to the ocean, and Brazilian people also have a deep connection, but it's difficult to show and to connect to the high seas or the importance of the ocean. Sometimes it's not that clear for most of people. So how can you do that?
You know, that's a really important question because the high seas can often feel distant from most people's everyday lives. One of the things that I've learned through the Sargasso Sea work is that connection often begins with storytelling and visual representations. Through my work with Greenpeace, at a certain point, we realized something really important, that policy briefs were circulating, that scientific reports were being cited, and yet many people abroad still did not feel what was at stake for Bermuda. So instead of doing more aquatic DNA research and writing yet another paper, Greenpeace and I made a film in collaboration with the community of Bermuda entitled From the Sea We Came. From the Sea We Came was not intended to explain the ocean. It was intended to recenter who gets to speak for it. The film brought forward local voices, the voices of children, community members, cultural leaders, and general island perspectives, not as symbols, but as experts in their own lived experience. And we also created short animated films that were focused on a commercial fisheries species that was very important, not only to our community, but to a variety of communities, and that would be tropical lobster. Many people love to consume lobster. And I found that art does something that policy often cannot. It tends to build emotional literacy, and it allows people to care for things before they fully understand. And I think that matters when we're asking the world to protect something that they may never actually see. What surprised me was actually how the film itself traveled, that people recognized themselves in it, even if they had never been to Bermuda. And I believe that that's cultural diplomacy at work. Public support it's vital because protected areas on the high seas ultimately will rely on collective will. When communities understand their personal connection to the other ecosystems around them, they can become powerful advocates for their protection.
Yeah, I really believe that communication engagement is the key for the success of not only BBNJ, but the main global agendas as well. We have some people here that work with that, and it's really good to have here in the event not only scientists, but also communicators, journalists, and people that work with that. So, tudo junto e misturado, again. So finally going to Ana Paula. And so from a governance perspective, how can the technical identification of EBSAs and the use of BBNJ's integrated management tools help Brazil strengthen the institutional capacity to meet international environmental targets in a scientifically robust and collaborative manner? Why did I put so many big words in this question? But it's for you now.
Well, I believe that the same challenge that we face in creating MPA within our own countries, our own waters, are reflecting BBNJ. It is true when we look at all the years and challenges that have been posed to get to this point with the approval and launch, thanks of God, of the treaty right now. Many countries are reluctant to create these areas because they reflect the economic interest at stake. That is why I believe that the lessons learned from the EBSAS process can greatly help to leverage the start or the beginning of the BBNJ's work. And I want to recognize here and thank my youngest friends that are here and start with us the process of EBSAS as Jess, Angel, Zeca, Marinês, and others. We are in this road long time, isn't it? On the other hand, where I believe can also accelerate this lently BBNJ process is the fact that UNFC, the Triple C, is beginning to incorporate the fact that the ocean can be the decisive ally in combat climate change. And when we said that, Leticia already talked about it, we are talking about the entire complex web of life that makes up marine biodiversity, from the most microscopic organisms such as plankton to whales, from the surface to abyssal zones, from mangroves to polymetallic nodes at one. All are part of the carbon cycle essential to planetary life, and to protect them, it is necessary to establish at least marine protected areas. So, responded specifically about governance for Brazil, yes, I think certainly all the experience and leadership of international agreements, synergy between these agreements, available instrument, all the lessons learned will greatly facilitate decision making. I believe that, and I hope that. On the other hand, I believe that we still have enormous challenge to face given the climate emergency and a world at war right now. We grid once again revolves around fossil fuels, mining, and etc. Just like the climate, the BBNJ is more than ever a matter of exercise and cooperation with multilateralism. And while on the own hand, we can say that we already have expertise in how to do it. On the other hand, we have enormous doubts and to whether we will be able to do that. I think it's the big question for us.
And I think we have here in the stage actually an example of coordination of this. You have government, you have the philanthropy, third sector, community represented here, talking together about the implementation of global goals. So that's the way you should do. And you talked about hope. And that's interesting. I think, I'm not sure, that is the first time today that I hear this word, hope. We talk a lot about technical issues and scientific ways and all of our targets, and it's a must, sure, but in the scenario we are living now in the world, we also have to have hope as well to follow that and be in this integration to support each other in this way, because it's not an easy path, but we'll keep on doing that. So thanks again for this, for you being here, this amazing panel of women and Adriano. So a round of applause for them. And there is one more piece of this panel. I'd like to invite to the stage for the final